In July 2017, Delta welcomed its first Airbus A350-900 aircraft, making it the first new class of aircraft to join its fleet since the welcoming of the smaller Airbus A321, which was already an old design. Currently, the airline operates a fleet of nearly 1,000 aircraft, and we are speaking only about mainline Delta, and not Delta Connection, which has a fleet of another 300 planes. When you look closer, Delta has both Boeing and Airbus aircraft. However, when only taking into account orders that the airline has made, Airbus clearly prevails here. This wasn't always the case, since many years ago, Delta was a loyal Boeing customer, and the first European-made aircraft joined the airline's fleet only after the merger with Northwest in 2008, not counting a few A310s inherited after Pan Am. So why did Delta decide to completely switch its wide-body fleet to Airbus by ordering A350s instead of Dreamliners or 777s? What is the real reason behind this shift? Delta always believed that diversifying the fleet between a few manufacturers was the best option. For example, when it comes to narrow-body aircraft, the airline operated both Boeing 737s and McDonnell Douglas MD-80s. For larger wide-body aircraft, Delta shared the fleet mainly between 767s, 747s, and Lockheed Tristars until their retirement in 2001, after which only Boeing planes flew on long or busy routes with Delta for some time. In 2008, Delta announced a merger with Northwest Airlines, an airline that had more than 150 Airbuses. As a result, European aircraft joined the Delta fleet in big style with 30 A330s and almost 130 A320s and A319s. In 2013, Delta ordered 10 more A330s to complement the former Northwest order. At this moment, it became obvious that Airbuses would permanently be a part of Delta's fleet. But don't forget that Northwest had also ordered the 18 787s back in 2005 and was expected to be the launch customer of this type in 2008. The Dreamliner would replace the aging Boeing 747-200s and McDonnell Douglas DC-10s on international long-haul routes. It was expected the 787s would be about 50% more fuel efficient than those aging planes, and that would greatly increase Northwest's profitability. After the merger, Delta inherited the order and decided to retain it, at least for some time, as the airline itself needed modern wide-body jets. In 2010, Boeing and Delta reached an agreement to defer the 7878's delivery to 2020. In the meantime, I ask you not to defer the decision to subscribe to my channel and do it right now, as we are only getting started. Then, only a few years later, in 2014, Delta decided to move further towards the Airbus wide-body aircraft. The Atlanta-based airline ordered 50 new wide-body jets, 25 A350-900s and 25 A330-900 Neos. At this time, everybody in the industry knew that the 787 deal was dead. Nevertheless, the airline simply decided that it is worth keeping delivery slots for the wide-body aircraft. The speculations, however, came true in 2016 when the airline officially canceled the 787 order. The reason for canceling the 787 order was simple. A fleet of 18 planes would not be commercially viable, as the costs of maintenance, spare parts, and specially trained crew are simply too high. This is also why the airline decided to retire 10 Boeing 777s in 2020. After that, it became apparent that the switch to an Airbus-only wide-body fleet was only a matter of time. It's also worth noting that Delta will be adding the larger Airbus A350-1000 to its fleet, with deliveries beginning in 2026. The aircraft will grow Delta's A350 fleet, which currently consists of 29 A350-900 aircraft, with an additional 15 on order. Now let's see what makes the A350 so special that Delta bets such a big part of its future on it. The answer lies in a combination of technology, efficiency, and smart design that fits perfectly with what the airline needs right now. Let's start with the numbers that really matter. The A350 burns 25% less fuel than the planes it's replacing, namely the Boeing 767 and Airbus A330. For an airline flying long distances across the globe, for example from the US to Asia or Australia, the aircraft was a game changer. However, the airline didn't just buy these planes for their fuel efficiency. The A350 comes with some impressive perks. It's already capable of flying with 50% sustainable aviation fuel, with Airbus promising to bump that up to 100% by 2030. A huge selling point for an airline trying to improve its environmental image. Then there's the passenger experience, and this is where things get really interesting. Delta has completely redesigned its cabins for these planes and introduced a completely new upgraded main cabin, Comfort Plus, Premium Select, and Delta One seats. In addition, on board the A350's Wi-Fi is much faster than it was, for example, in the 767s, making the aircraft a massive leap forward since its delivery. The plane itself is also 50% quieter than previous generation aircraft, which might not sound important, but for passengers on long flights, it makes a huge difference. The cabin is also pressurized to around 6,000 to 8,000 feet, a lower cabin pressure than older planes, which means passengers will feel less tired after trips. Now, you may think that the 787 Dreamliner is a wonderful new aircraft with improved passenger comfort, fuel economy, and features almost the same perks as the A350. So why did Delta suddenly decide to switch to Airbus after decades of buying only American-made widebodies, especially from Boeing? The truth is that the decision to choose A350s instead of Dreamliner was made not due to respective aircraft advantages or disadvantages, but rather based on the market conditions in the first half of the past decade. If the 787s entered Northwest's fleet in 2008 as it had been planned before, there is almost 100% probability that Delta would have been a Boeing 787 operator today, because it would make zero sense for Delta to retire the 787s if they were only a year or two old by the time of the merger. In addition, Northwest held options for more 787s, which could be later exchanged for larger 787-9s orders to replace the 747-400s, which Delta also inherited after the merger with Northwest, but that's all alternative history. When Delta was evaluating its wide-body fleet options, the Boeing 787 was facing significant challenges, including a high-profile grounding in 2013. In addition, its delivery schedule was pushed further into the future, meaning a longer wait for the airline. At the same time, Airbus offered a more attractive deal, as it was keen to secure a strong foothold in the lucrative U.S. market among three major legacy carriers. That's why it offered not only the A350, but also the A330neo, an aircraft that was launched in the same year as Delta's order. Now, you know the reasons why Delta prefers the A350 over the Boeing 787, even though it's an extremely popular aircraft that both the United and American have in their fleet. Airbus simply offered a better deal. The merger with Northwest and the acquisition of many Airbus widebodies also played a significant role. As a result of the decision made over 10 years ago, when flying with Delta on long-haul flights, you will have a high chance to fly onboard an Airbus plane, as the airline will soon start retiring their aging 767s. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like and subscribe to my channel.